today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
Oh my God, really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no.
We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. It's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the vice president at the time on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on.
I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
One big thing is that he did not say that there'd actually be a vote to open up an impeachment inquiry. Remember, it's on September 1st, that's when Kevin McCarthy told Breitbart News, the conservative news outlet, that there would actually be a vote on the House floor to open up a formal impeachment inquiry. He did not say that just now. In fact, he said that he was directing that key House committee, the House Oversight Committee, to open up an impeachment inquiry. Now,
meanwhile, Politico's Kyle Cheney, along with Josh Gershing, reported, quote, the Biden administration has a literal trump card to play against the House GOP impeachment inquiry. In 2020, Trump's DOJ issued a binding legal opinion that impeachment inquiries are invalid without an official vote of the House.
That's what I was getting into just a minute ago. The GOP House Oversight Committee announced yesterday on X, that's Twitter, that Chairman James Comer is requesting Secretary of State Antony Blinken to provide information on then Vice President Biden's, quote, sudden shift on Ukraine policy. They say that in 2018, Joe Biden publicly boasted about his role in having Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin fired, and by his own admission, Biden said he made the removal of the prosecutor prosecutor General Shokin. The man leading the investigation into Burisma, a condition for Ukraine to receive a critical $1 billion loan guarantee. Right, this is the element of this that I think is most suspicious and potentially indicative of some criminal wrongdoing.
Democracy is at stake, folks. Our democracy is under attack, and we got to fight for it. I taught at the University of Pennsylvania for 4 years, and I used to teach political theory.
That is untrue. That is President Joe Biden just lying about his time at the University of Pennsylvania. That's actually not the first time he's lied about academia. In '87, he boasted about finishing in the top half of his class at Syracuse University Law, despite having finished 76 in a class of 85 students. Definitely in the lower half. He's also claimed to have been the named outstanding student in the political science department during his undergraduate career at the University of Delaware, despite there being no record of his having received such an award.
Counselor in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
There's just one problem. According to RNC research, Biden was in Washington, D.C. on September 12th, 2001 for a Senate session. Now, this apparent gaffe comes as Biden's numbers in recent polls are cratering. Wall Street Journal survey shows 73% of voters say Biden is too old to run, while 47% of voters say former President Donald Trump also too old to run. In a CNN poll, which we covered here on Rising last week, 67% of Democrats wish they had an alternative to Biden.
But MSNBC's Mehdi Hassan says Democrats shouldn't worry about these statistics. Let's look.
We need to calm the hell down. Just hold on. With more than 400 days to go, losing your marbles over a couple of meh polls isn't good for your health and isn't at all justified.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
I don't know that I would evoke the notion of it not being good for your health when we're having a conversation about whether or not Joe Biden is fit for office from a physical and mental cognitive perspective.
He's doing self-therapy there because he doesn't want to have to worry.
Exactly. It's like, who are you trying to convince? Your audience or yourself?
Everything's fine. He's the this is fine dog.
100%.
This is fine. 100%. He exaggerates. He's come to suggest sometimes that Beau Biden death was related to what did he said it was in Iraq?
Oh yes, that it was like a military death.
Right. It was not. It was
right. He freed Nelson Mandela, or there are these crazy. Yeah. Oh, the Mandela one is good. Is a good one. But
and political figures are always, Hillary Clinton claimed her chopper when she visited, I can't remember if it was Iraq or Afghanistan, was like nearly and came under fire.
Right.
It didn't, everyone likes to tell stories that puts them in harm's way. The politician loves I got my hands dirty and I went in there and we almost had to shoot our way out. Yeah. It's nonsense.
Joe Biden has repeatedly regaled voters with a tale about himself being arrested 30 years ago in South Africa while trying to see Nelson Mandela. It just didn't happen. It plainly didn't happen. So
this president has a pattern at this point of either inventing or embellishing stories about his own past, his biography. He did it 3 times in one speech last month alone. He claimed he had witnessed a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh when he actually showed up about 6 hours later. He claimed that his grandfather had died just days before he was born himself at the same hospital. In fact, his grandpa died more than a year before in a different state, not the same hospital. And he also repeated a favorite false story that I and others have debunked over and over again about a supposed conversation with an Amtrak train conductor he was friends with, who was actually deceased at the time the conversation would have had to take place. And that's not all. There's some more serious ones in my view. Previously in his presidency, he claimed at one point he'd been arrested during a civil rights protest when, in other versions of the story, he just said an officer had taken him home from a protest. He said he had visited the Pittsburgh synagogue where worshipers were killed in a 2018 mass shooting. In fact, he had actually spoken to the rabbi, but never went.
Obviously, his first entrance into the national spotlight was when he ran for president and plagiarized a speech from a British politician back in either the 92 election or the 88 election, I'm not sure.
And I started thinking as I was coming over here, why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to a university?
Why am I the first connect in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family
to ever go to college.
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get the university?
No, it's not because they weren't as smart. It's not because they didn't work as hard. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
Does anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent or the strength or the endurance or the commitment? Of course not. It was because there was no platform.
Biden visited Vietnam over the weekend to solidify economic ties with that country. But what might have stuck more were some awkward moments from a news conference that had the internet ablaze. Biden capped off his trip to Asia and Hanoi, delivering a news conference in which he only took questions from 5 pre-selected media members.
And now I will take your questions. Let me see, they told me they gave me 5 people here.
Now, Biden was abruptly cut off by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, ending the presser very abruptly. Take a look.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the Southern Hemisphere had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Before being rushed off stage, however, Biden addressed the press in the G20 Leaders Summit, one point quoting a John Wayne movie in an attempt to take a swipe at climate deniers. Let's watch that.
My brother loves having, there's famous lines from movies that he always quotes, and one of them is there's a movie about John Wayne. He's an Indian scout, and they're trying to get I think it was the Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation, and he's standing with the Unions. So they're all on their horses and their saddles, and there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses, and the Union soldiers. And the Union soldiers basically saying to the Indians, "Come with me, we'll take care of you, everything will be good." And the Indian looks at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, "He's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier." Well, there's a lot of lion, dog-faced pony soldiers out there about global warming.
What was obviously notable that the White House seems not to be willing to respond to is that Karine Jean-Pierre didn't cut him off after the 7th question. She cut him off in the middle of his answer to the 7th question. And not only did she choose to interrupt the president in the middle of answering a question and start playing, I don't know if she played it or the event space played it, what sounded like Oscar playoff music for when your speech is going on too long. But that it happened after Biden seemed to be having difficulty finding words.
Tonight, Hunter Biden's attorney accusing the special counsel of bending to political pressure from Republicans in Congress, insisting Hunter Biden possessing an unloaded gun for 11 days was not a threat to public safety. Today's news coming as President Biden was delivering a speech on the economy. No comment on his son's indictment.
There's a lot more I know we could talk about. I wish I had a chance to take all your questions, but I'm going to get in real trouble if I do that.
Should Hunter get a pardon, Mr. President?